Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior.
Welcome.
It's time for the further adventures of Indiana Jones.
The greatest adventures of all time.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Marvel Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones?
Jones! Mr. Jones, I've heard a lot about you, sir. Your appearance is exactly the way I imagined.
Son of a...
I'm here now. What do you want to talk about?
Welcome, IndyCast listeners, to the further adventures of Indiana Jones. I am Joe Stuber.
And I'm Keith Voss. And Joe, happy Indiversary. We
Happy
just
anniversary.
celebrated.
Well, which one?
Yeah, exactly.
So many.
So many. We just celebrated the 30th anniversary of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And
your favorite Indiana Jones movie,
favorite...
kind of next to Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I think you have a special place for that one.
Exactly. And of course, the 25th anniversary of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And yeah, I celebrated my Indiversary by watching Temple of Doom on Blu-ray, and of course, I just love it more and more every time I see it. And it's quite interesting, Joe. I was thinking right before, we were chatting a little bit right before we started recording for the show about how when we first started this segment of the Further Adventures, and we were celebrating then the 30th anniversary of Raiders, and we started off our segment by reviewing Raiders, and now we're kind of ending the Further Adventures segments. We have this episode and the next episode, and then we're kind of done with Further Adventures. We're ending on the 30th anniversary of Temple of Doom, and so the circle is now kind of complete.
Almost. We're getting there. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping this up in the 30th anniversary year of Temple of Doom. 3 years. We started this. It's easy to mark when we started this because it was the week that Indiana Jones premiered of the 30th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And yeah, I mean, when we kind of kickstarted this, it's like, all right, how long is this going to take us to get through 34 issues? Well, we got a pretty good idea now.
Exactly. Between all the interviews
too,
and the guests, the interviews, and the random breaks
special,
and
special episodes and things like that.
It's taken a little longer than we thought it would, but you know what? It's been a pretty great ride.
That it has. And it continues with issue number 33. So why don't we get to the creator rundown?
Let's do it. And we have the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, issue number 33. Double Play, Chapter 2, Magic, Murder, and the Weather.
Your favorite title.
My favorite title ever. I mean, Magic, Murder, and the Weather? Anyway.
It's like a 70s pop group or something like that.
Exactly. I think I have their album here somewhere. Anyway,
awesome.
Great cover date of January 1986. Great cover by Keith Pollard, script by Linda Grant, pencils by Steve Ditko, inks Danny Bulinati, colors by Ken Fedunovich, and letters by Diana Albers.
Yeah, always reliable covers here by Keith Pollard. We talked about this. He kind of finishes off the run. Love Steve Ditko's art, and I think he captures Harrison Ford's likeness like no other. But again, we've talked about this as you're kind of going through the book. We'll talk about it when we get into the review. But these last couple of issues, again, as much as I love Steve Ditko's representation of Harrison Ford, I kind of wish Pollard had done the issues themselves because these covers are stunning.
Yeah, they are unbelievable. And here you have Indiana Jones fighting off the army of the dead. I know
what more do you want? This is better than the book, though. I'm okay with this. The book was awful, but
oh, come on! Indy's fighting more zombies on this cover than he is in Army of the Dead, and he's also going up against
the Vikings. They're like with the clubs, and
the club and swords,
cool.
and one of them's biting Indy's leg.
Yeah.
That's a great cover. And I mean, Indy's apparently going up against Doctor Strange.
Of course he is. Yeah.
I think he is.
That is you would think Ditko did that. You know what I mean? Because it's such like a 60s more. And when we get into the issue, there's kind of a 60s feel to the art too, which is obviously Ditko's influence. But yeah, that cover by Pollard, and I love this cover, but it kind of ruins the surprise as to who the villain is.
That's true because I mean, also
put the cloak on him. I mean, in the book, there's a cloak.
Cover his face, so we don't know who he is. And the other thing is that this is a total duplicate of the final page. And spoiler alert, it's the final page. It's the exact final page, except it's like Pollard's art versus Ditko's art. And when you get to that final page, you're like, oh man, wow, why wasn't Pollard doing this whole book? It's a huge difference in the artwork.
And we've got that very much like superhero-y, spandexy kind of thing on here. We got the underwear on the outside. Kind of look to it too. So there's that whole thing. It's just cool though. It's a very Marvel cover. But yeah, I love, and the look on Indy's face. It's like he can handle anything, but man, he looks terrified in this.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you be? You're getting attacked by the undead there.
Yeah. So
and
great start.
I don't see any of Indy's weapons handy. I don't see his gun. I don't see his whip anywhere. He's got to fight him off by hand.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting issue. So I can imagine Indy's letting out a scream right now. And speaking of screams, wow, maybe Wilhelmina is afraid for Indy as well, too. She's letting out a scream there. Let's find out how Indy got himself into such a tight fix by kickstarting this adventure. You gave us the creator rundown. Indy has found himself in an airport. Just a little bit of backstory as we're kind of going through there. We talked about this. This is the 3-part adventure that wraps up further adventures. We got a 3-part story arc, but it started kind of a prequel back in issue 28's Tower of Tears.
That's right. And it seems that as of right now, Indy has just landed in Croydon Aerodrome in England. And he's on the trail of professional thief for hire Amanda Knight. And she, last issue, was posing as Victoria Keith, a representative of the British Museum. And Amanda stole a mysterious amulet that that was being held in the National Museum, and she took off for England. So now Indy is getting hassled at this airport by these two guys, Scotland Yard's Percy and Clyde. And I gotta say, I really love this. Like this, the ticket agent is handing Indy his passport back, and these two guys just come up on both sides of him, and his head is going back and forth like, "Who are you guys?" Yeah. It's so great. And it goes on for like the first few pages of the book. Indy's head is just constantly on a swivel, like, "What are you guys doing here?"
Yeah, I alternately like and dislike this element of it because it's a great comedic piece to start this off with, because Indy's kind of getting there and his head is spinning as they're just kind of throwing all this information at him. But I think that joke is used a little bit too much just from Ditko with the sort of head swiveling back and forth. I mean, we kind of get that he's being, going back and forth in the conversation with these two. And it comes out again later in the book too.
Yes.
So we do this. So there's like almost every panel, I think it is every panel on those first 2 pages is the double faced Indy,
except for that last panel, which is when they're kind of already just walking away from him. So
but that's the great reaction. It's the kind of that confused action, like what just happened here? Because they're basically telling him, look, we know why you're here. Yeah, you're after this woman, and we have no jurisdiction over her. But he's like, wait, what? How do you know that? What? And here's where you want to go, and here's this and here, and you might want to take a holiday up in this area, and so it's a great comedic moment. I just visually, I get it. I don't need to see the double-headed Indy there.
I got you. But I like I said, I really liked it and put me in the story a little bit more because you kind of got the sense of like these guys were talking so fast.
Yeah.
And that's a great way of visually showing how fast they actually are talking. You can't. It's really hard to kind of get a pace of how fast or how slow someone's talking in a comic book. This tells me a lot that these guys were just talking a mile a minute. They're going from not even finishing their sentence before the other guy is starting. So it told me a lot in those first few panels that these guys are just totally just talking a mile a minute, and Indy just doesn't know how to handle it.
Well, and I will give him this too, is that we talked about this expositional dialogue and how some of these things can get too wordy and you get bogged down. So it is an interesting way of achieving that, as well as getting you that expositional dialogue, bringing you up to speed from the last issue, and then kickstarting the adventure. So I like that. I got the joke after the first couple panels. So, but yeah, great comedic moment. We've got the 2 Scotland Yard individuals, Percy and Clyde. They're pretty funny, but they're out of here. They did their job. They directed Indy to the ruins of the Orkney Islands, north of Scotland. So the Red Line is traveling yet again. And while we're there, we find that this is where Amanda is. She's standing amidst these stones. Kind of looks a little bit like Stonehenge.
Yeah, but it's not really.
Not really, but it's kind of that feel to it. It kind of looks like that. And it's called The Ring. And here we find this mysterious man dressed in a purple cloak. It's the guy from the cover, but I think it would have been more interesting if the cloak had been there on the cover so that we don't get tipped off as to who it is.
Exactly, because honestly, as soon as you see the guy in the book, you're like, well, there he is. You know what I mean? And they're trying to build up some type of mystery as to who it is, and he's kind of revealed at the end. And I mean, but again, if you take a look at the cover, you know exactly who the villain is. But anyway, the mysterious man dressed in a purple cloak. He got the amulet from Amanda Knight. But he also needs that clay tablet, the one that Alex Sutherland got in the last issue, the one that he was saying, guys, you gotta listen to me, please. I got a clay tablet.
That's what you guys want.
and our mystery man isn't too happy because he says that even if one man reads this tablet and learns of this legend, the one that we found out about the Seven Towers last issue, the ruin that these 7 sorcerers wish upon the world is going to be visited upon them instead. And Amanda Knight is just like, yeah, whatever. Sorry, I'll just take my money and be off now.
Yeah, she just wants to cash a check.
She just wants to cash her check. So last issue, you're kind of led to believe that maybe she's more kind of involved in this, but no, it just turns out she's just a hired hand.
That's it, yeah. And then, but that's not good enough for this mystery man because he's like, oh, I'm going to take care of you. So, like, a dire situation for Amanda here. She's not going to be able to cash that check and take off. So we kind of know where she is. We know Indy's on his way there, and the adventure at this point jumps ahead days later and a dozen islands later. Indy has been checking all over. So the guys from Scotland Yard kind of pointed him in the right direction, but it didn't tell him exactly where she might be. So he's there, he's bouncing around, he's checking things out, and he stops in at the Swanson Boarding House and Pub, apparently, where his ilk, archaeologists, they are not welcome by Duncan, the bartender, and the rest of the patrons there. And I love that we get a Raiders callback here. I love that.
We find out why. As soon as Indy tells them that he's an archaeologist, they're like, "What? We've seen your kind before." A Frenchman named Belloc.
Yeah, and that's great. I love when Further Adventures calls back to these other movies, but it just ends there. And that's the frustrating part about this, is that I love that they dropped this in. I'd love to find out more of what happened with Belloc and this adventure.
I wonder if Belloc actually did find something.
We don't know.
The thing is, the very next panel, where after they mention Belloc, and he's like, Belloc, then there are ruins on this island, and then the bartender's like, no, he found nothing, and he yells it. And I wonder if, like, he's just trying to cover it up. He's just like, no, he found nothing, and neither will you. No, that's the way it's going to stay. Now get out of here.
Yeah, we don't know.
We're did find something, but he just never, he never kind of followed up or went through with it.
I mean, we know Further Adventures ends, so perhaps that was something that they were going to drop in. Maybe they wanted to bring that back, that storyline. Maybe a relative of Belloc. Who knows? I mean, they talked about these things all the time in Further Adventures, these characters they wanted to bring back, or at least call to mind. They talked about some flashbacks, so, but... it was not to be, Shetty.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It could have been also Baloche, but...
Baloche.
maybe it was Baloche that actually showed up on the island.
But anyway, so what could have been? But we do have the cool Raiders callback. And at this point, Indy's really only got one friend in the bar, and that's Ian Soames, the lighthouse keeper. He's the guy on the cover. Come on.
Yeah,
spoiler alert. Like, forget Wilhelmina. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's
only
the
other guy in the book with a mustache.
That's right. It's Dr. Strange.
Exactly. Dr. Strange himself has showed up.
And apparently he makes his own scotch.
Down beer? 7 o'clock in the morning. Scotch?
Yes, he does. Which we find out later on, probably not the best vintage, but
no,
I don't know.
It's a different kind of vintage, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he's like the only guy befriending Indy. So you would think that would make Indy suspicious no matter what, because like everybody hates him, and this guy's, I'm like, hey, come on, this guy's all right. And hey, here's a bottle of my scotch. Here, take this and drink it. Okay. That's a little strange.
Yeah, and Indy's like, thanks, not that I need help sleeping tonight, but, and these guys are, then, Ian gets confronted by the rest of the people in the bar, and they're like, "What are you crazy? What if he stays? He's going to learn our secret. Yeah. Who is this guy? We got to get him out of here."
Yeah, so it's not too hard to figure out who's the bad guys here, because it's like right away, as soon as Indy leaves, it's like dun dun dun. Everybody, everybody's got an issue here. So yeah, Indy kind of goes back.
So it's not so bad that we're kind of like that the villain is kind of released on the cover. It's not really spoiling anything.
No, but I think it would have been a better cover if you just didn't see that. But
I totally agree.
So Indy kind of goes back. He's gonna crash there for the night. He starts to go for this bottle of scotch, and then he hears some things outside. Out of his window, he sees the townsfolk heading for the moors with shovels. So, kind of another...
Is that Moors or Moops?
Who invaded Spain in the 8th century?
That's a joke. The Moors.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry. It's the Moops. The correct answer is the Moops.
Moops. Bubble Boy.
I thought it was Moops,
try,
right?
Bubble
No, it's
Boy.
Moors. Oh, sorry, it's Moors. You're right. It's Moors.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So he's heading down, and Indy thinks it's a little late for gardening. It's an okay joke. And he heads down. Great Harrison Ford, though. I mean, look, Ditko's art's a little over the map on these ones. He's rushing to get the book out, but man, he always gets Harrison Ford.
For
his
sure.
reactions, the look, and we've heard it a million times. Harrison Ford's tough to draw, but not for Ditko. And we get a very strange character that Indy comes across here, Crazy Angus.
Crazy Angus, who attacks Indy with some type of like wooden divining rod or like a dowsing rod.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dowsing rod, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, is that used for like water or something like that?
It's to find stuff like metals or water, or I guess in this case power as the book kind of goes through. So yeah, we'll find out something's going on here, but he just like smacks Indy in the back with this, and then he's like, "What?" And he's like, "You're here to steal the power, ye devil, and you evil one." And he like starts hitting him in the head with it, And Indy like grabs it and starts hitting him with it. He's like, "What's up with you, crazy old man?"
He thinks Indy is like a creature of evil, and he's obviously the nickname is given for a reason, I think.
Yeah. So he thinks Indy's come to steal some kind of power, and then all of a sudden there's these chanting noises, and Indy kind of turns around, and Crazy Angus takes off toward the lighthouse. It's a little strange moment here because then Indy's just like, "Oh well, I lost the guys." I lost the old man, although I see him running right down in front of me there. I'll just sleep it off and wait till the morning.
I mean, and there's also another there's another major hint right there. It's like, Ian is the lighthouse keeper. We already made a mention of it. Yeah. And this guy's running towards that dark lighthouse. Okay, there's something going on at the lighthouse. Boom. Yeah. There's
a very Scooby-Doo feel coming into this. So, and we've seen this a million times, So, but it's kind of interesting. Indy's just kind of figuring things out as we're going.
It kind of forgets about him, and
I just don't like them going back to sleep that night.
Yeah, he's like, you know what, the chanting, forget that. I'm just gonna go back to sleep. Forget the chanting and stuff. Yeah, it's a little strange. Maybe he was really tired. He had a long flight.
He just wanted to get to that scotch, which he doesn't get to. Yeah, he's gonna take the scotch and he goes back and doesn't take the scotch. Again, strange. So yeah, jet lag. Indy's got jet lag. Well, anyway, the next morning he gets up and the bar, the patrons are still like, "We don't like your ilk here. We don't want you." He's like, "I just want to eat my oatmeal."
They're not happy that he missed that dawn ferry. They're like, "Oh, you're still here?
Yeah.
Like, we're supposed to take that dawn ferry."
It's very obvious they want to get rid of him now. So Indy's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and Ian shows up and he meets Indy at breakfast and he tells Indy the townsfolk think that guy Crazy Angus, who Indy met the previous night, is a witch, and he hides in a hovel on the beach. Yeah. So that's explained, right?
Yeah, and there's all this witches and burner and all this kind of the crazy townsfolk, as we're going through here. These guys, they don't want Indy down on the moors again. Indy's going to take off, moves. So basically what we have to find out is what's going on at the lighthouse, what's up with Crazy Angus, is he really as crazy as we think he is? Why are the townsfolk so weirded out by everybody? What's their fear? So Indy's going to go down and just talk to Angus and find out what's going on here. Look, he's named Crazy Angus for a reason.
Yeah.
He gets down there and it's like, a devil took my stick from last night and look, you brought it back to me. And he's like, he had the flaming eyes, and he's like, no, dude, it was just me.
He freaks out. He's like, you? Yeah.
All is lost. He freaks out and starts running away again. He's like, Crazy Angus, come back. I want to talk to you.
I wonder if this is like, if he's related to Alex Sutherland.
I don't know.
Nobody's
His grandfather.
everybody's
everybody's
Alex'
evil.
grandfather.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's great.
And look, if nothing else, he's an interesting character.
For sure.
In
sure.
the life of Indy.
Maybe, if anything, maybe related to Prospero.
Oh yeah, that's
Maybe
right.
related to
I don't know if he has the
Prospero,
crazy strength of Prospero, but yeah, he's definitely a wingnut.
Yeah, for
as
sure.
he's going on. So yeah, Indy's like trying to chase him. He just wants answers. Then all of a sudden, this divining rod, this dowsing rod, or whatever's like, and it's like picking up on some kind of vibe. And Indy's like, okay, what's going on here? So now, here's where we get just a lot of dialogue and a lot of explaining things. So again, for an Indiana Jones adventure, okay, you really want the action-packed kind of Indiana Jones. And here, there's just like a lot of more maybe like mystery or figuring out. It's a very Scooby-Doo thing. Mm-hmm. Kind of coming up, and I'm just okay with it. I mean, it's okay, but yeah, Crazy Angus is talking about these ley lines,
and the
these
power
lines that crisscross. Yeah, they're like these power lines that cross the earth, and so they built these places of worship where these ley lines cross, like the ring where we saw Amanda earlier. This kind of Stonehenge kind of thing, and they carry power to the lighthouse. They carry power over to England, across Europe, to Persia. Okay, so we get all this.
And they have the power to. This power can cast out devils, and apparently the ley lines are decaying. And Crazy Angus is mentioning that the Earth itself is dying, and Indy's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
like he doesn't quite get really what this guy is talking about.
Right, and a lot of panels, a lot of dialogue. Again, for an Indiana Jones comic book, it's probably not too hard to figure out why the book wasn't selling at this point. It's just not. It's just there's a lot of Indy trying to figure out stuff. And we kind of like a little bit more action adventure with our Indiana Jones.
And also, this is good for like the older reader, who's going to kind of get a little bit deeper into what maybe these powers would be. Maybe 13, a 12 or 13-year-old kid would probably be like, what's going on here? Where's the action? Where's the whip? Where's the gun?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what hurt the book as well.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting, but it's not necessarily going to sell a comic book. So and all of a sudden Crazy Angus is like, I remember everything, and he kind of runs off, and okay, now we get another chase with the old man again, and it's like, and then out of nowhere we see this flash from on top of the cliff that catches Indy's attention, and he's like, oh, okay. And then there's this one panel where he's like climbing the cliff. So I don't know why he doesn't go up around the other side, but anyway, because you think there'd be another way to get up there. But he like kind of like free climbs this cliff, and then there's a panel there where he says, "I'd almost forgotten why I'm here." Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
Because at this point in the book, there's just like Crazy Angus and the bar patrons and Indy's oatmeal and what about the scotch? And there's it's like you're there to find Amanda and get the amulet back. You're there to recover this amulet from the museum, so it's like, thank goodness we're getting back to the story.
He's getting very, very close, because what he saw from the ground in this cave is Amanda's plane.
No way. No way.
Yes, exactly.
I'm calling it on this one.
I don't know how anybody could have pulled into have flown into that cave, turned around. How is that even how do you do that?
How would you even know that there's room in there to just fly right into a cliff face and then land and then turn around? It's like, unless you knew that was there, did they build a runway in there? I don't know.
Yeah, interesting
idea.
I
don't even find that an interesting idea.
I think it's a hidden air base or whatever. But I'm just
a hidden air base would be one thing, but not in this little teeny opening on the top of a cliff face.
Exactly.
It would be impossible to do that. So, if you found something else, maybe. But yeah, I ain't buying that one. But
he does.
Okay.
He does find something else. He finds Amanda Knight's ID in her purse, which happens to be. What woman is going to leave her purse in the plane? Come on.
That, and did he really need to go through her stuff to find out it was her plane? Exactly. Who else's plane would it have been? Okay, so I guess it's like, hey, in case you forgot who we're here she is, and here. Okay, that's a little strange.
Did forget. But yeah, I mean, they had to do it somehow. I mean, she's not going to land a plane in the middle of in the middle of the city.
Right.
So they had to do it some way, and whatever. It's a quick little blurb that if you don't really think too much about it, you kind of move past.
Yeah. And then we go back to the boarding house again. I don't know why we have to go back to this. I mean, obviously there's this scene has to play out, but I think there's a better way of doing it. But Indy goes back to the boarding house just to sit and think. I get, so yay, we get to see Indy sitting around thinking that's not really what we want. But he goes to get a sip of Ian's scotch, which after a couple of days now, if he finally gets to it, he's confronted by the locals. We don't like the looks of you and your ilk. They want him out of there. Why did they get rid of him 2 days ago? They're still trying to get rid of him. But yeah, this one guy's at Douglas. He kind of like grabs the scotch from Indy, he grabs the bottle and smashes it, and he's going to take Indy out. And come on, they're going to go after him, and all of a sudden, he drops.
Maybe he was poisoned.
All of a sudden, he's dead.
Yeah, but they think he's a witch. It's like, burn him. It's like, what? Maybe it was the thing he just drank.
Can we not build a bridge out of him?
He's made of wood. He floats.
Burn him anyway.
Oh, but aren't they working with Ian? Wouldn't they have known that he drugged the scotch?
It would be pretty smart to kind of maybe let those guys in
on your plan.
Yeah.
And wouldn't they be surprised? It's like, okay, we just got to get him to drink the scotch because Ian told us that, that's a little strange. But the guy knocks it back. So he dies. They think Indy's a witch. Indy's like, I got to get out of here. I think Indy could have taken care of these guys by himself. I didn't think he had to jump out of the window. They don't have guns or anything. One guy's already dead. We've seen Indy take on a whole bar full of Nazis. Come on, if you're going to have a Raiders callback, give us the Indy we like. So he just jumps out the window and runs off.
But the thing too is, have you seen a whip or gun at any point on Indy throughout this book?
No, and it's apparently in the room they left it behind.
Yeah, but I don't see it on his body anywhere. That doesn't seem to be very Indiana Jones. He takes that gun and whip when he's out.
He does, but when he's traveling, isn't it in the suitcase? We saw the whip in the suitcase in Raiders, and he throws the gun in.
Yeah, but even when he's walking through the streets of Cairo, Joe, he has the gun and the whip.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on. He's not going to leave. If he knows there's something dangerous going on, he even says he doesn't want to deal with those locals in the pub. Indy's a smart guy. He's not going to leave without his gun and whip.
No, and especially if he's thrown down with some guys, he could have just if it's sitting right there, because we find out later he left it in the room, he would have just gone over to the gun and grabbed it or the whip or something. That's
right.
Yeah.
And even if just to threaten or whatever, but that just seems way out of character for me.
Yeah. So he jumps out of the window. And then all of a sudden the townsfolk get together. They're still trying to figure out how to get this guy. And one guy said they think Indy's going to meet with Crazy Angus. One guy's like, oh, I met up with Angus once, and his evil eye lamed my leg. See, these guys are just like, I don't know what era they're living in.
But he's standing. And he doesn't have a cane or anything.
No, but then he hands off his gun to Sinclair. We got this angry lynch mob going. So Indy's hiding out. We know he's not armed. He doesn't have his whip or anything, and he's amid this Viking settlement. Here's where our cover starts to come in. We start to get this. He hears this chanting again. The townsfolk catch up with them. He overpowers them. I like this part of it because now Indy's sort of the man of action. He gets the gun away from him, but he still doesn't take the guys out. He just kind of holds him off with a gun and heads to the lighthouse to get help from Ian.
Well, the one guy already shot the payload. It's a double barrel shotgun. He shot with bullets, and then Indy threatens them. And he's like, "Hey, don't make me use this."
Yeah.
And the guys are really going to be that stupid. And it even comes up later on in the story, they actually believe the gun is loaded, even though the other guy just shot the gun.
Right.
And it's kind of like, all right.
Well,
these are really dopey henchmen.
Right, and look Indy's not that smart either, because look where he's going for help. He's going to the lighthouse to get help from Ian. How did Douglas die?
Yeah.
He drank the scotch and died. So Indy knows Indy's not a witch. He knows there's no magical stuff going on. He knows it's the scotch.
He should have been able to put 2 and 2 together at this point.
Oh, the guy that gave me the scotch. Why did he want me to drink it so much? Oh, this guy died from it. Yeah. So that one again, it's like the suspension of disbelief. Anyway, he heads down to the lighthouse to get some help from Ian, the guy that apparently tried to kill him. And these guys are looking for him still out on the moors, and they run across something. Moops. Sorry, the card says Moops.
The card says Moops. Anyway.
They come across some guy wearing a cape, and they're like, his eyes. And they let out this blood-curdling scream as Indy's almost to the lighthouse, and he's like, what? What was that all about?
And Indy seems genuinely terrified here.
Yeah.
And up until this point, come on, Indy's seen some things, okay? From the Thuggies to the power of the Ark. He's seen some things, and he looks genuinely terrified. He's screaming Soames' name. Eventually, Indy gets in. He makes it into the lighthouse. Doesn't see Soames. but he does see a trap door.
Yeah, of course. What else would be in a Scooby-Doo lighthouse mystery?
That's right. And inside that trap door underneath, he finds Amanda Knight.
Marion Ravenwood?
Amanda Knight. I mean Willie. Amanda
tied
Knight.
up.
Exactly, tied up in the basement.
And once again, Indy still leaves the woman tied up to the chair.
Exactly. And it's so great, that last panel on this page where Indy's about to leave her and he says, "Oh brother." It's almost an exact duplicate of the last panel on the last page of the last issue where Indy was in his professor's outfit, taken off, just about to leave. This is pretty much the same thing, except Indy's in his field outfit.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same. But again, look at Indy. No bag, no whip, no gun.
Right, but we do get a dead-on Harrison Ford. I do love the reactions that Steve Ditko puts in here, because he's kind of like, "I'm leaving you behind. You're staying tied up in that chair. You're going to jail for this. I finally got you." And then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll let you." You kind of get that Indy, like maybe she's telling the truth, because obviously somebody tied her up, somebody put her there. Something's going on that she's in trouble, and he lets her. And then all of a sudden, Indy, why did you do that? Amanda turns around and just takes him out with the chair.
Exactly. And Indy still wants to know, of course, where that amulet is, and she just mentions that, that magician stole the amulet. I guess she doesn't know it's Ian. Maybe she does, and she just doesn't want to say anything. I don't know. But yeah, she cracks that chair over Indy's head. Again, Indy falls for a beautiful woman.
Yep. And Amanda falls as she's heading across the moors, the moops. She trips over these dead bodies when we heard that blood-curdling scream. These guys are dead now. So they ran into our mystery man, who is obviously
the Cape.
Soames, the Cape, the Doctor Strange
himself.
And he just is really going to take Amanda out because he's not happy with her. And it's kind of a strange thing here because, he realizes he finally reveals himself as Ian Soames to Dr. Jones.
Big surprise there.
Right, really, yeah. Come on, Indy, you couldn't have figured this one out. And it's an interesting exchange. He's like, "Oh, you just want the amulet. Here's the amulet. I'll take care of the girl." And Indy's like thinking, "Oh, okay, well, I came here to get the amulet. You're going to take care of the girl." But then all of a sudden it's like, "No, I'm Indiana Jones. I need to take care of the girl. This isn't going to go down the way you want it to."
Exactly. Yeah, this guy, Doctor Strange, just, he tries to trick Indy. I guess he gives him a fake amulet.
Yeah,
and
he just wants to get rid of Indy.
Yeah, he wants to get rid of Indy, and he kind of makes a mention of, like, you killed my spiritual brother in Iran, which, of course, took place in issue number 28. And Indy's like, "Brother, Iran?" He's like, "You're a sorcerer." And this is where we get our climax, of course.
Yeah, and this ties into issue 28. It's all starting to come together. And, yeah, as you mentioned before, here's our cover shot.
Yeah. Here's our cover shot. And it's funny. Dr. Strange mentions, "Oh, I'm glad you didn't drink the poison scotch I gave you." Indy mentions earlier in the book he wanted to give the scotch to Tavistock. Imagine that, how that would have gone over.
Well, that would have taken care of Tavistock.
That would have taken care of a couple of Indy's problems. But, yeah, anyway. And Soames mentions, like, men like you deserve an exotic death, and that's just about what he's going to give him. He kind of summons these undead Vikings and Picts, and they start coming out of the ground, and this is again where we get our cover. Anyway, now look at this, look at this final page, and compare it again to the cover that we actually got, and I mean, man, it is night and day.
Yeah, and that's why I say I kind of wish Pollard had done the book. Yeah, if he had more things like this, and maybe if Pollard had been the regular artist, again, if they had had time on the book, I love Ditko, they were rushing him through a lot of these things, so if we kind of go back to the middle years of Further Adventures, where, they had time on the book, and they were able to develop these storylines, if Pollard had been on, or something, what could have been, but...
Yeah, and we also get a great line here, where Soames says, "Your past has been your life, Dr. Jones. Let it be your death as well." That is a great line.
Yeah, so regardless of what you think of the book at this point, this last page, this is very Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Because we got kind of a cool villain, a throwback to 60s Marvel, with got a little bit of Doctor Strange going on. We've got, like, these skeletons coming up from the ground, grabbing Indy by the ankle, and we've got this reference to his past coming back, and it's going to be... There's a lot of cool Indy moments here, so I kind of like where the book ends. I don't necessarily like how it developed. I think we wasted a lot of time getting to this point, but it's a very cool wrap-up to this one. Yeah,
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, let's see what happens in our final issue. Issue 34, the final battle between Indiana Jones and Ian Soames in Something's Gone Wrong Again.
Well, something that isn't going to go wrong, we've got some things to give away to some of our listeners here. Something is going to go right for at least 2 listeners. We've got the biggest Further Adventures giveaway yet. We want to talk a little bit about that. Keith, as you mentioned, only 1 issue of Further Adventures remains. We've got 2 great sets of books to give away. The first one, Set 1, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, Issue 1 and Issue 2, The Icons of Ikemanen. Issue number 15, signed by the legendary artist Herb Trimpe. Issue number 25, signed by the legendary artist Michael Golden. And we're throwing in a Dark Horse Free Comic Book Day, Indiana Jones Temple of Yearning. What about Set 2?
In set number 2, we have issue number 23, signed by the legendary Michael Golden, and the Master of Kung Fu issue number 121, which includes the rare Indy in His Office splash page by the legendary John Byrne, which is a great.
I like that one. Yeah,
I love
cool.
that.
Pretty
It's so great. The Dark Horse Free Comic Book Day, Temple of Yearning, is also in this set as well.
That's right, and all you have to do is bring to life one of the covers of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. You've got 34 different cracks at it. Only 1 entry per person. In the case of multiple entries, only the first one we receive will be eligible. They have to submit these, Keith, to thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. We appreciate those that are trying to post some things on the Facebook page. Please don't do that. Just send us your entries to thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. Only those entries sent to the email address will be eligible. We're about out of time with this, Keith. When this episode of the IndyCast airs, which should be June 2nd, depending on what, obviously people don't listen to it. Obviously not everyone's listened to it the exact time that it airs. So we're going to give this week for listeners to kind of, take a little breath, take a listen to the IndyCast, hear some really cool stuff here. But we want to give a final deadline date, June 8th. That is June 8th. So you must get your entries to there. Yeah. So if you're hearing this on Monday, you've got the rest of this week to get it to us. It gives you the weekend a little bit to polish things up a little bit. But yeah, and we're going to be picking those top 2 entries on our very next segment, which will be our review of the final issue of Further Adventures. We're going to announce those first and second place covers, and we're going to talk about the future of the Further Adventures on the IndyCast, Keith, as well.
That's right, we will.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
Well, in true Indiana Jones style, we're left with a Further Adventures cliffhanger. It certainly seems appropriate as we head toward the final issue of Further Adventures, Keith, from Marvel Comics.
That's right. Next issue we have Indy versus one of the 7 sorcerers. He made it out alive last time. How will he escape this time?
We will find out, and we will wrap up Marvel Comics' Further Adventures of Indiana Jones series the next time on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.